Welcome to the Enterprise Builders Podcast, powered by P3, where we feature top industry leaders discussing what it takes to build a profitable company and stay on top. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, I'm Scott Swearingen, co-host of the Enterprise Builders Podcast, where we sit down with business owners, executives, franchisees, accountants, and more to discuss how top businesses are thriving in today's economy. Before we get started, I need to thank Larry Levine, a P3 cost analyst franchisee, for getting us in touch with today's guest. This episode is brought to you by P3 Cost Analysts. Since 1991, P3 has been helping businesses and government entities across the U.S. determine if their non-payroll related expenses are accurate and cost-effective. With a team of the industry's leading utility, telecom, waste and recycling, uniform and linen, and managed print auditors, P3 has helped save their clients hundreds of millions of dollars. Their experienced auditors have helped tens of thousands of businesses, from small business to Fortune 500. To learn more, visit costanalyst.com. And now for today's show. Multi-generational companies often struggle with changes. These struggles can happen with changes in leadership, industry shifts, or innovation within the marketplace. According to the Conway Center for Family Business, only 12% of all businesses are viable by the time it makes it to the third generation. It can be tough for businesses to not only survive these inevitable changes, but even more difficult for them to thrive. Our guest, Andrew Salmon, is the third generation of his family to run their family business that now operates under the name of SALMON Health and Retirement. SALMON focuses on delivering a high level of care and service for their clients and have been recognized nationally for their efforts. Serving as the company's chief future officer, Andrew has helped the company grow through the creation and management in the centralized referral center. He also sourced the acquisition of what is now SALMON VNA Hospice. Additionally, a big part of his efforts are making sure SALMON is linked to the business community. He has forged numerous exclusive and preferred vendor relationships with partners that have helped the company grow sustainably year over year. Andrew focuses on doing the little things very well, which he believes will lead to doing big things great. His work ethic is strong and is backed up not only by his success in business, but also as a father and a world-class athlete. Andrew has completed 6 Ironman Triathlons and even competed in 2 world championships in 2012 and 2008. Andrew, thank you for being on the show and welcome.
Thanks for having me today. This is awesome.
Excellent. So having a good day.
Yeah, I mean, as I said to you when we were kind of getting started today, is I'm not big into my bio, but I sound pretty cool at times. So it's nice to hear that stuff. But I guess before we start, I want to make sure that I do say that the bio is great, but there are a ton of people behind that. My wife, my family, my kids, my brother, my sister, my brother, their families, our teammates at work. So success is awesome, but being there with people is probably the best way to get there. So
absolutely, cool. No successful business is due to just one person, right? It takes a team, absolutely. Andrew.
Absolutely.
And I know you've got a good one behind you. So let's kind of jump into it. As I mentioned in your introduction, you're part of the third generation of your family to run this company. Can you talk about kind of growing up with the business and what maybe you have learned or taken away from the previous generations?
Yeah, so we were founded in 1952 by my grandparents, my dad's parents, and then my parents bought it from them shortly after that they got out of nursing school. And now today, my brother and I are the 2 of the 4 kids that are left in the business. I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from the previous generations is probably 3 things. The first thing is what my grandmother always told us, is that the easiest thing to clean are your hands, so get them dirty. So I try and get our hands dirty every day. whether it's in the community, whether at work, COVID, just being in it every day is probably the biggest thing I learned. The second thing I took away from the previous generations is what my dad always said and believe is be humble. The employee always comes first. And our job as a third generation is to take care of the employee so that they can take care of our customer. And the final thing I took away is something that my mom always said was trust but verify. And oftentimes in a family business, you trust those people around you almost too much. Right? Oh, Scott's great. He's been with us for 30 years. He's got this. Well, trust Scott, but verify that he's doing the job. And I think in 2022, that trust and verify is much more important today because we're going so fast. Things are changing so fast. So being able to trust our colleagues to do the right thing and then verifying has happened by talking to our customers, talking to our vendors, talking to our partners in the community and beyond. Those are the three things that I kind of go back to every day to make sure that we're doing the right things.
That's awesome. I love the approach of making sure that you're spending time to be in the business. And I'm sure that by being around this for over 70 years now or whatever the year is, you've seen a lot, you've experienced a lot. Can you talk about maybe some of those different roles that you've had within the company?
Sure.
I mean, those are some great pieces of wisdom that you talked about, but I'm guessing, by getting involved, really, you've probably been involved in a lot of different areas of the business.
Yeah. So my first job was doorman when I was like 6, open the doors for people. And
wow.
then I went into the kitchen, into housekeeping and maintenance and nursing. And after college, I got certified to be a licensed administrator. So I worked for Genesis Healthcare for 5 years and then came back to work with us. So I think the first thing that I really take away from our business is that being an executive director is the best job on the face of the earth because you can really get in and affect people. You can affect the employees, the customer, their family for good. Done improperly, it's a disaster. So the most important job that I've had in our company is being a campus director. In fact, I'm doing that today, filling in on an interim gig for our new property in Medway. And those lessons of being close to the budget, close to the customer, close to their family are what makes us special. And that those opportunities to be consistent. So I want to make sure that our company is consistent and doing the right things. And I think the best way to do that is being on site as much as I can.
I can only imagine, Andrew, I guess the difficulties there must have been over these last few years with COVID and, as you transitioned into that and then out of that and just kind of, those shifts that have taken place during that period. What are some of those things that you've been able to do to ensure that there's that consistent level of service and care we talked about, briefly earlier? What are those? What are some of those things that you do to ensure, that you're having a consistent product?
Yeah, well, I think that what I do is different than what we do, right? We as a company have focused on our employees. And what I did during COVID was make sure that I was there for people, whether it's carrying the boxes, moving people on COVID neighborhoods, or being there for folks to vent. We were blessed during COVID where our staff came to work. And that from the rest of my life will never be lost on me, right? Is that they showed up. And because of that effort, I had an obligation to show up too.
Sure.
So what I did on a personal level was I didn't ask anybody to do something I wouldn't do. And for anybody, that's where it starts. You have to put the actions where the words are. If those two don't kind of coincide, it won't work out. So by showing up and being there every day on a campus, helping out, that was the one thing that I did. And the collective we, I think, was great. The executive team here leaned in. We had key executives on campuses doing the right things. We had our chief people officer really making sure that the pay was there for people, that things got done quickly. My brother, who's our CEO, was hyper focused on the company globally. So we were able to get through it quite well and do some really cool things. But in the end, the one thing that I did and we did collectively was put our actions where our words were.
I guess in that time, to have that rallying environment, which it kind of sounds like it was with your staff, that had to have been just an incredible time, and probably helped, solidify that culture that has got to be so incredibly important. Not saying it wasn't strong before, but coming out of it, I mean, did you see a kind of a stronger sense of culture within your business?
Yeah, there's two great stories to tell you. The first one was the first week of COVID in 2020, where it kind of came through Asia and Europe and hit us. Right, is we were doing about 100 room changes in a couple of days to create the neighborhoods, and the aides were working nonstop. And our former chief financial officer and I were helping people move. I pulled into a room to move somebody, and there was an aide sitting with her. And I said, "Hey, come on, let's move this person." She goes, "No, I can't." "What do you mean you can't move her?" I go, "I'm understanding. You have to help me move this person." And I never say my name, right? Right. Goes, "No, I'm well aware of who you are." So, okay, so help me. She goes, "I'm not." I go, "Why?" And she pointed across the room to her roommate, or the roommate. And she says, "I'm here with her. I promised her daughter that she wouldn't die by herself." So she told the owner of the company, and she told the guy that literally signs her check, no. Because she came in on her own time. She had worked a double and stayed for 4 extra hours to make sure that person that she cared for didn't pass by her.
Wow.
So that's the level of commitment. And she was like 19 years old. And in the end, we paid for her to go to nursing school because my dad's like, "She's a nurse. You got to get her through nursing school," right? So that's the stuff that was going on during COVID. Post-COVID, those people that came through were tired. They were gassed, right? They had been through a ton. And so culturally, what I've seen is the bond of COVID experience has brought people together to cope. Yeah. And the stress, I think, is going to be here for a long time. And what I mean by that is if we're colleagues, and in 2018, it would take 10 things to get Scott upset. Today, it takes 2 things. Yeah. Right. Because they're so stressed. And what I've seen are colleagues coming together to understand each other better. And because they're going through pain or suffering or processing those 2 things, they're aware of that. And now today, people are having conversations about how they're feeling, what's going on. And employees are much better at raising their hand saying, "Hey, I need a day off. I'm cooked." Because they learned how to manage that effort through COVID.
That's good stuff, and that actually is something that I wanted to touch on, and that was a great story there. And I want to go back to it. You said you paid for nursing school for one of your employees after Two, incredible display of commitment. And she's not the only one, obviously, what you just said. I was going to ask, what can you do in such a challenging environment, staffing environment? I know that the skilled nursing labor pool is obviously, it's tough. What can you do to ensure, that, and you just talked about some of those things, though, that your staff, is working in a place that they want to come to work at, keeping that turnover as minimal as possible. and ensure that maybe you've got opportunities for advancement or alignment with your staff's goals. Can you talk about kind of some other things that you might be doing at the company to really make sure the employees are happy?
Yeah, so I think everybody in healthcare has some sort of career ladder, and there's education on there, there's pay on there, there's job growth. We all have that. We're like penguins. Yep. We all look the same in that sense. The thing that I think that we're doing a very good job at here is ensuring that the executive directors on the campuses have the tools they need. And the tools aren't always policies and procedures, but it's empowerment, right? They're empowered to say, hey, Scott's the guy that I want to invest in and back them up. Because if we're just sitting in an ivory tower saying do X, Y, and Z, it doesn't buy in. So what I'm trying to do day to day is empower our executive team, whether it's on the ops side or the clinical side, to do the right thing in their own way and really have them create the solutions to their own problems. And I'll get involved and help where I can, whether it's coaching or being on site, those kind of things. But in the end, the way to have these programs work is to have the campus level buy-in. And to get the buy-in, you have to have the ED empowered. And therefore, they empower the dietary group or the culinary group, the nursing group, right? That core group of leaders is so important. And today, I think pound for pound, we have the best team that we've had in our company's history, top to bottom. They all have different skill sets, different perspectives, but they all are able to run their campus in their own way. And then something that I think I'm really proud of that my brother did recently, over the past, 8 months, is he promoted internally a woman named Michelle McGovern to be our COO. And Michelle has worked with us for over 20 years. And she was a nurse's aide, a nurse, a staff nurse, charge nurse, all those things, worked her way up. She started 2 businesses for us. And now she is literally day-to-day running operations. And her focus has always been the people because she's grown up with us. She'll still reference my father or my mother. She goes, that wouldn't fly if Dottie was here. But her ability to focus on the core needs of the business and her ability to be able to talk Matt or talk Andrew and then talk, quote unquote, the ED is huge. So I think we've done a nice job to going back to what I said earlier, to align our actions with our words. And that if we want to say this is a great place to work, I can now point to Michelle, been with us forever, right? And she's worked her way through and it's paid off for her. And now today she's helping to shape the culture. And that's so important. So, despite the fact that we've been around since 52 and there is changes, the changes that are going on are pushing people that deserve to be there to the top. And because of that, I'm really bullish in the next 5 to 10 years for our company, because I think that we have the right team to run the business at the campus level. We have the right team at the executive level for the company-wide point of view. And then I think our vision for our family business is strong. So those 3 things being in alignment are huge.
Well, those are great examples of what you're doing. I love it. I know that your industry obviously is going through a lot of changes right now. I believe earlier this year you all sold a couple of facilities, and it was a strategic move in order to continue to offer the full continuum of care, but in maybe a different manner that you were previously with those 2 as a part of your portfolio. Can you talk about what led to that decision to sell those locations and how that aligns with your goal moving forward?
Sure. So I'll start with the back end. Our goal has always been to be the premier provider of senior healthcare and housing in New England. And for a long time, that was well within our grasp, and we were hitting it. Unfortunately, the long-term care space has been dying the death of 1,000 paper cuts. And for the past 20 years, it's been chronically underfunded. And for a long time, we had the ability to pull the profits from the higher end of our continuum that are all private pay based to support the lack of funding in the nursing homes. Unfortunately, in the past 8 to 10 years, the margins have shrunk so much that they're negative, and that we could not continue to invest good money after bad money. And so we made the very difficult choice to sell 2 assets. We started 2021 with 600 skilled beds and ended with 300. So our portfolio every day has about 2,500 customers in 58 towns in Mass. 1,000 of those people are on our hospice and VNA services, and the balance were in the ALs, ILs, and skilled centers. So we still have that same number today. We've just bumped up the percentage of AL, IL, and VNA beds, clients. But we did cut off 300 of those skilled beds. And today we're a much stronger company. I think stronger financially, stronger employment-wise, and then really stronger on the customer care side, because we're able to focus on what we have to do, not what we need to do. And we have to be a high-quality provider. We have to have higher staffing rates to do that, and we have to have better outcomes. So by having a smaller portfolio, those 3 things happen in a much more effective way. And we don't have the losses from those 2 assets. We were putting in well over $1 million per year of cash into those 2 buildings to keep them open.
And I think that's extremely smart what you're doing. And from what I understand of the industry, there's been kind of some shifts with the aging population to maybe want to have care at the home or have those options. Some segments are maybe becoming a little more independent, where previously there might have been, a greater demand for that straight in, the nursing and rehabilitation in-house facilities, if you will. But I think that's great. Let's talk about it. And I know that we've talked about it a couple of times, but I want to go a little bit deeper into this, because you've talked about how you have to have a high level of care. I know that you're in a competitive marketplace. I know you're in an environment that, like I said in the intro, that you have to do little things well, and that leads to doing the big things great, right? But what are you doing to just make sure that it really is a high quality level of care that your clients are receiving?
So I think the first one is getting rid of businesses that we can't do it in. Right? My brother and I can't speak for him, but I know that I am done trying to push a string. Right? Yeah. It's just not going to work. Right? So let's figure out where we can do a great job, and then once we found that area.
And real quick, I want to jump in and say that's an incredibly difficult thing for a lot of businesses to do, is to look themselves in the mirror and say, are we doing this well or not? And I just wanted to touch on that, because I think that that's something that oftentimes gets really overlooked.
Yeah. So I don't know whether I can swear on this podcast, but I'll be kind about it. About 7 years ago, my 2 brothers and my sister and I met in my office to kind of craft what the next 10 years might look like. And I said, I don't want to run shit nursing homes. Yeah. Like that was my hard line. I don't want to do it. It's too important. Yeah. Right? These people are 80, 90. They have families, grandkids, sons, daughters. It's too important to run it the wrong way. Yeah. So if we can't do it the right way, let's stop doing it. Yeah. I love the business. I'm a nursing home kid. I believe in them so strongly. But in this environment, you can't do it the right way. So that sent us off on a path to find out what can we do really well. And we believe that our background in care is really going to play well for the VNA because we understand what it's like to give care to people in nursing homes. And that it's that intimate care, one-on-one, a lot of touches. And that's exactly what the VNA in hospice can do. And then we also know that we're very good in the AL-IL space. So we set out to acquire and build new ALs and ILs. In the past 5 years, we've opened 2 brand new AL-ILs. And I'm running the one in Medway today. And it's an AL-IL to cottages. We have cold plunges, we have spas, we have bistros. We have a really great model of care for folks to be independent. We have built a lot of technology and science into it. We have lights in the bathroom that support a person's circadian rhythm. We have an on-site fitness team. I have folks that are in the memory care coming down doing yoga. So we're able to meet people where they're at because now we have the environment that can accept them. I can take people that are 75 and healthy and want to go to Paris. Great, go do it. I can take folks that are 98 and have issues with memory care or, hospice. I can do all that stuff in the environment where they want. And then the kids and grandkids can come there and use the pool, the pickleball court, the bistros, the bar. I have a fully licensed bar to the public. We're able to really take the top off this thing and meet folks where they're at. And if I can do it there, why can't I do it in the nursing homes? It's because of payment. And when I was running our nursing homes back in the day, I served beer and wine with every meal, right? I'm an Irish Catholic kid. We love alcohol, right? Everything we do is around alcohol, right? So alcohol, food, and family were what I grew up with, and not a negative way, but those were the 3 things. So let's provide that level of service today. And I'm so proud of what we've done because we've really raised the bar across the board. And we are competing in a tough market. But if we focus on what is in our control, which is our business plan, our staffing, our process, and our program, I believe that pound for pound, there's no one better than we are. So for us to kind of get a smaller number of skilled beds has allowed us to grow in a very profound way, not in terms of the quantities of people that we serve, but the quality in which they get the care.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it sounds like those amenities and other things that you're offering that aren't at all these facilities is just awesome. It kind of takes some of that stuff that I think people might be scared to make some sort of transition into an IL or AL facility. You're like, well, why not? Your family can come here and have a great time too. And I think that that's such an important component to all this because you're allowing for your clients to continue to have a high quality of life, right? And really be able,
absolutely. Like what's the point of living if it can't be high quality? And that's a moving bogey, right? Like, if you break your leg and you're a runner, like you were in college, and to break that leg, you can't run, but there is quality that's to be there. And that's what we want to do. We want people to live the most independent life they can with the issues they have. So if you can't do X, then let's do Y. If you can't do Y, let's do A. Let's figure the whole thing out and give you that chance. And I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. I'm going to tell you what I can do to help support that, provided you tell me what's important to you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know that obviously those are a couple of examples of you executing on your goal, which is to continue to serve, just serve your clients at an extremely high level. What do you foresee being the industry's biggest challenges over the next 5 to 10 years? I know you've kind of touched a little bit on some of those funding issues that made you make some shifts. What else do you see? Because I mean, obviously, there's some big shifts, and you've made some big moves lately in order to kind of limit your risk against some of those pressures. What else do you see coming on as being some of the biggest challenges for your space over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think a couple of things. The first one is funding, and not in terms of the government funding, but how things are funded. How do we attract good investors in our space? How do we attract investors that will be able to support the need while balancing their bottom line? The second piece is we need to be careful about not moving the long-term care, quote, problem to the assisted living. And I haven't seen us as a country or a state really dig in to structurally change the payment process for us. And I think folks are saying, well, we'll just have them go to the AL. Well, in 10 years, guess what? The AL is going to be the nursing home, and the IL is going to be today's AL. So, and then finally, I think the third piece is really how do we attract good, talented, strong people to the space? And that is my biggest concern, is we're not a sexy space. You know, we don't see a lot of guys and gals out of Harvard or Wharton or Stanford or MIT coming into the space. And if we don't have talented, driven, intelligent people to support this space, we are screwed. So I really think those are the three things. So it's funding, and people. So I guess the more things change, the more they stay the same. But you know, those are the three things that I really envision as being the challenge going forward.
Sure. You talk about the space having challenges to attract people. Like I said, it might not be the sexiest of spaces, but you've done some great things as a company in order to retain the people that you've got there. You've done things that can maybe attract people. As far as the things that you can't control might be like, you know, how many are even available to recruit? What does that nursing space look like right now? Do you know, is there a good amount of students pursuing nursing degrees? Do you know if it's going up? Is it going down?
I think the amount of people that are pursuing it are going up. The challenge, like anything else, is the schools don't have the nurses to train them, right? If you look at the programs in our area, they have great people that are there training. They don't have enough. So they have a waiting list that's 10 miles long, and they would be able to take more folks, but they just can't get trainers. Gotcha. And the Voc schools by us have done a fantastic job. In fact, here in Worcester, North High, I think, has a larger health services group in terms of students than the Voc school does. So we have a lot of kids coming through it. And thankfully, in this state, I think we have a really good process for immigration. And we're seeing, you know, Ghanaians and Africans come into space, and they're fantastic to work with. Sure. So I think we really have to understand, how do we support the school to create more space? Because if they have space, it's kind of that field of dreams. Build it and they will come. In that way, we've been blessed to have great people in our area, from a whole host of different countries, Guatemala, Brazil, all the African countries. We've just been blessed. So I really want to make sure that we're able, as a society here, to get people into school. And the biggest barrier today is just the amount of people that they can take. Sure.
That's interesting. We're kind of talking about some outside things. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here, because I really like your involvement in the community. I'd like to hear a little bit about maybe some of your board involvement. I've seen that you're on the Milford Regional Medical Center board, Spectrum Health board, Massachusetts Assisted Living Association. Can you talk about kind of maybe some of your board involvement, maybe some instances of some wisdom that maybe you've pulled from that experience, or just kind of how important that board involvement is to you?
It's very important. I'm a past trustee of Milford, and I'm the current board chair at Spectrum Health Systems, which is a national drug treatment company. That has been the most important and most impactful board I've ever been on.
How long have you served on that?
I'm going on 8 years, I think, 7, 8 years.
Nice.
I'm never getting off. I joined kind of towards the height of the opioid crisis here. And I have lost about 10 friends to the disease. Wow. And being there and understanding the work that they do and how they do it has been really, really enjoyable. It's been fun to give whatever wisdom I have to them and then to learn from them about what they're doing. I've been able to help people. They've been able to help me. But Spectrum, by far and away, is the thing that's nearest and dearest to my heart. Unfortunately, my term's coming to an end as board chair by design. I don't like board chairs that last more than 3 years. I think it's not good for the company, not good for the board. So I did 3 years, and I'll step down, and I'll probably come back at some point in the future. Milford Hospital was awesome. I learned so much there because I started as a corporator, worked my way through their system, their foundation board. I was the board chair of that, the vice chair there. And then I worked on to the board at the corporate board, and then I concluded as the vice chair. And it was, the choice to step down was a hard one. But being on that board, I really saw how important community hospitals are and what they do for the community. And it really helped me codify our position as a company. We have to support the local groups because they're the ones that are going to support us. And if the local groups are not involved in something, it won't work. So The hospital really gives a ton back to the community because they get so much. And that really helped me codify our point of view. And then MassAlla has been something that I've been a part of for about 10 years now. It's the trade association. I'm grateful for them because they took a nursing home kid on there and let them learn. And that board's been fun to see how different the two spaces are and to see the challenges that they have and understand kind of what binds them, and then being able to extract things that we can do better or worse, and really get those back into our company. So all 3 boards have been a blast to be on. I have been on a few other boards like the Reliant Foundation and those things, but in the end, Spectrum is the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart because they truly care for the folks that can't care for themselves. And, that's a calling of a human being, right?
Can you talk a little bit about their mission, Spectrum's?
Sure. So their mission is really to provide high quality drug treatment and rehab. They do a mixture of inpatient, outpatient, and they do a lot of work, what they call behind the walls. So they go into prisons and care for folks with addiction. And we have a number of great programs that have been in place to help inmates get back out into the real world clean. And their ability to help the indigent population is just special. We do the private pay stuff and the insurance, but their bread and butter is really going into the urban areas that are really affected and helping.
And I could see there's probably some parallels there. I mean, I know it's a personal issue, like you mentioned to you.
Yeah.
That's really important, but being able to identify people that are in need of maybe some special care or special attention with what you do on a day-to-day basis, and then maybe your board involvement with Spectrum, they're maybe not as far apart, right?
No,
there's probably a lot of similarities.
Similar. Yeah. Medicaid, Medicare, and insurance, right? That's in our space. They've got they have inpatient, they have detox, inpatient, outpatient. So it's the continuum. They have nurses and staffing. They have a lot of involvement in the public space as well in terms of the government. So, pardon me, it's been really, really fun because it's so similar yet so different to what I do. And I think the biggest difference is everyone talks about caring for the elderly, but I don't think as a society we put the actions where the talk is.
Right.
And then when I see the involvement that the public has towards the opioid crisis, I see actions and words aligning, and it's great, right? And that I wish that was the gap that we could close on our end, but I'm so happy that it's being closed on this end because it's such a concerning thing. Whether I can tell you 1,000 stories of a college football player or whatever goes in for surgery in a shoulder, gets prescribed opioids, and then 2 years later is dead from fentanyl.
Yeah.
Right. He got hurt and then bang. Right. So if we can control that process a bit more and bring that control to awareness for the greater good, I'll work my ass off every day for that, because that really affects people's lives in a good way.
That's awesome. And I know that obviously community involvement, like you've been talking about, is important to you. In fact, I think on some information I was reading about you had structured or maybe did a gala that helped raise over $600,000 at one point.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? That's not a small amount of money, Andrew. And obviously there was a lot of effort, passion, execution involved with that. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So we hosted. So we, being my wife and I, who's a rock star, we hosted Melange, which is a black tie gala event for Milford Hospital, and we hosted it in my hometown, and it was the most profitable one that they had. And the goal when I got on the board was to do $1 million. The next year they did $1 million, so I missed it. But what I learned was humbling. We raised a lot of money, right? We kept the cost quite low compared to the past. So they raised it and they made it. But I had so many friends and family in the room supporting us. When I was speaking, clearly I have a stutter, right? So me getting up in front of 500 people is never a good thing for me. But I was looking out in the crowd and I saw, long-time friends that really hadn't been a part of the hospital there. We hosted it at the school that I grew up going to. The principal was there, right? That was great to me. And I was so grateful for that chance because A, it was nice to feel that way. But B, it was so great to see the mentors that I had in my life, they're giving back, whether it was the bank, a great friend of mine, Vinny Osterman, who owns Osterman Propane, Dave Glisbin, the list goes on and on, Lee Gaudette, Tony Brookhouse. That whole crew came out in force. And they came out to give and have a great time and to support their friends and their family and their hospital. So it was a great time. And then really getting to see how the sausage is made, seeing how professional the auctioneers are, the builders are, the design space. So they move every year. So they find a new spot. And it was in a brand new basketball gym that looked like a club. We had big screens. It was awesome, right? But to see how many people were able to express their own talent to create something cool, that was the thing that I took away to my core. And now this year, we're hosting it in our new spot in Medway. So
Nice.
I am not hosting it. We are the host site. A friend of ours, Anthony Consigli, and his wife are the hosts. And I'll be shocked if he doesn't do over 1 million this year. But we're proud to host it in Medway, and it's gonna be great.
I love it. You're clearly a guy that put your money where your mouth is, and that's just another example of stepping up and executing and giving back. And this kind of leads me into it's back a little bit more to the business side. I know that you're heavy on relationships, and I know that you've forged relationships, obviously with your board involvement. And at the beginning, we talked about maybe some of those preferred and exclusive relationships that you've been able to forge that have helped this company sustainably grow. I know that those types of arrangements are difficult, number one, to put in place, and then number two, to actually have them continue to work year over year.
Yeah.
Can you talk about maybe some of your techniques for making sure that those relationships, number one, are set up in a manner that could be successful, and then ultimately are successful going forward? That's not easy.
Sure. Yeah. So 3 things. And I say it to everybody. And actually, it's in a post today on LinkedIn, ironically. There are 3 things that I think that anybody that's successful in business or life or anything do really well. The first one is they know their why. Why are they doing it? So if you want to have a program that's exclusive, why? Right? Why does this make sense? And I don't think many people do a great job of knowing their why. Like, why is it important? Well, because Scott's my boss and I got to do it. That's not a why, right? Why are you doing it? Because people are buying you. The second thing is perspective. You have to understand the other person or other party's perspective. If I can't put myself in your shoes, then I have no way of understanding how my actions could come across to you. And the third thing is embrace conflict. And conflict isn't you and I throwing our gloves off and going out back and fighting. Conflict is, do I wear a button-up shirt or a t-shirt? Do I cut the hair or do I not? Right? And so when you look at the partnerships that we've formed, the why was always the first thing, right? Why are we doing this? To drive outcome, to make things better for the person, to be able to help one another. Like, and I always say 1 and 1 makes 3. These partnerships these partnerships are good for the provider, they're good for us, and they're good for the customer. 1 and 1 equals 3. The perspective, right? These groups, they want to be efficient and effective. So we have to understand what their problems are. Let's just say, geez, what are the 2 or 3 things that if you didn't have to deal with would be a game changer? And then shut up. Let them tell you.
Yeah. And
then embracing conflict is that I chased and chased and chased and chased and got no. Okay, I'm going to come back up. I'm still here waiting for you. Right. And so conflict is the number one thing that people shy from. If you lean into that conflict, whether it's internal or external, you're going to get an outcome. So those 3 things: know your why, understand perspective, and embrace conflict. Those are the 3 keys to getting anything done. And it was certainly the 3 keys to getting those partnerships done.
That's some good stuff. And I think that, all 3 of those things, kind of point to that whole thing about expectations, making sure that we have the same, right? And that we're fulfilling those. And then if we're not, what do we need to do to get back on it? Which is really, that embracing conflict. I know in visiting and just in my experience, when there's that gap, that might be where, some things maybe tend to break down. So that's great stuff. Is there anything that you look back on so far as something within your business career that you're the most proud of that you can share with us?
Yeah, 2009. Was it 2009? No, sorry, it's 2000. Yeah, 2009. It was the year that Avery was born, my oldest daughter. We got a perfect survey and during a nursing home inspection, and it was literally the proudest moment of my life. The previous year, Nicole Croto and I, who was the director of nursing, we got our asses handed to us. And I remember the look in her eye, and she's like, "We're not doing this again, man. Like, I'm not doing this." So we literally just kind of sat down and put every piece of frustration out on the table. And we got a plan together. And we put a plan in place, and people followed, right? It was consistent. And in the end, the outcome was a perfect survey. And I remember going into the exit, it was she and I, and the team was like, "We're not bringing anything back to Boston." And she looked at me. And I'm like, "Oh my God." And I was trying to be cool, like, "Oh, this happens all the time, not a big deal." And we left the office and took a right down towards her office. And she just turned around and gave me a huge hug. And it was one of the best hugs I've ever had in my life. And it was this release of just a year of frustration and work. And it was so important to me because I learned so many good lessons about being honest with one another, putting a plan in place, trusting it, empowering others, teaching, and then just grinding out the details every day. And I was actually going up that afternoon to a camp to prepare for Ironman Lake Placid. And I had like a 4-hour drive. And I just had this smile ear to ear. And I saw the question that you're going to ask me, what is it? And in the end, that is the proudest moment of my professional career, because I went through the fire with a person that I care a lot about. I went through the fire with a team that I care a lot about. And we came out the other end unblemished, stronger, instead of tone that lasted for about 5 or 6 years there. When we left, they were one of the top rated sites in the country per CMS.
That's amazing.
And it was, for me, that's it. So I can talk all day about that. But Nicole, thank you. She's still with us. She's my work wife, and I wouldn't be the person I am today without her.
That's great. And I think that setup, getting your asses handed to you the year before, is something that I think people overlook. Is there are big opportunities in those moments, big opportunities. And if you're able to just really, again, look yourself in the mirror and say, what do I have to do to get this to improve? But without that opportunity of the kind of the lower part, you never would have had that moment, right, of that perfect score. Because you probably wouldn't have sat down and put together that plan and ultimately executed on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything is earned. And we started off with the family stuff. And growing up, I always heard, "Oh, you're born on third base." Yeah, I was. My parents weren't. They worked their ass off, right? Yeah. But whether you're born on the sideline or on third base, when those two people meet up, it's still 90 feet.
Yeah.
So you got to race me from third base to home. And that was always been my mentality. Is I'm so grateful for the life that I have, the opportunities I've had, but I've had challenges, right? And I understand that if you were born on second base, you're coming.
Yeah.
Right. So I got to be ready for you to round home, because you've got a head start. You're coming downhill. I'm just sitting there on third base hanging out. So you're coming the corner. I got to get going after you. So I always see myself as playing catch up. I don't
Sure.
believe I'm the smartest guy in the room. In fact, I always think I'm the dimmest guy in the room. I stutter. There are things that are going to be challenges. You have to face them. You have to get up, and you have to be able to be honest with yourself. And I've been given a lot, but I'm going to give a lot because of that. And I'm going to work my tail off because my grandparents and my parents and my siblings worked their asses off to help me get where I am.
Well, it's clear that you work your ass off, and I wanted to say, I just want to touch a little bit, and I know we got to wrap it up here in a few minutes, but I want to touch a little bit on the training. And I don't know if you're still competing in the Ironman Triathlons or not, but I know there's an incredible amount of training and commitment that goes into that. And I want to know about how that translates into business and how the business experience translates over to that training and ultimately the racing and completion. Can you just talk about that kind of relationship there?
Yeah. So my career ended in 2012. I have two daughters. They're currently 11 and 13. And I have a great wife of 17 years. But she shut it down at the end. She's like, dude, you've been through, this is too much. Right. So I'm no longer competing, but the lessons are there. Being consistent, right? In order to go, 140.6, you have to train every single day. Eat right, train right, recover right, have the right training partners, have the right equipment, budgeting, right? All those things.
Doing the little things
every day. And I was able to work with some of the best coaches in the world. So I worked with a group called QT2 Systems that was founded by a guy named Jesse Kropelnicki, who's a great friend of mine today. And he's so smart, but the system is so straightforward. Consistent, steady training designed to stress appropriately, aligned with the right recovery process, gets outcomes.
Right.
So those little stresses at work are good, but when they don't have a chance to decompress or recover, those are the issues. So during COVID, we looked at how do we take care of our staff. We started a family foundation. We gave out close to $15,000 to our staff and local charities. How do we pay people? How do we treat our break rooms? How do we, drive healthcare for our groups? How do we say thank you?
Yeah.
So it's those little things. And in the end, I said earlier, we're all penguins. We all have payrolls and buildings and all these things, but the little things matter. And that's, I think, the thing that translates the most. And that pacing. And it's a long day, right? If you're a pro, it's 8 hours and change, or if you're fast, it's sub 8. And if you're an amateur, you're looking at 10 to 14 hours out there. So how do you pace it? And if you're in a career where I started when I was 22, I'm 43 today. I'm 20 years in, and I got another 20 left. So how do you pace it? In what stage are you at? Where are your strengths? Where are weaknesses? Right? Are you a runner, a biker, or a swimmer? Like, how do you strategize this whole thing? It's very analogous. But in the end, it's keep it simple, and don't overthink things, which is the same thing. But I think in the process of trying to simplify, folks overthink it. So that's why I try and link those two in the same sentence. But today I'm doing martial arts. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. So the goal is to get the black belt pretty soon. So we'll keep working towards that. But it's the same thing. Show up, learn, practice, and come back.
Well, based off of what I know about you, Andrew, I have no doubt you'll get the belt. I have no doubt.
So. It's the process. Like, I got to Hawaii when I stopped caring about Hawaii. Yeah. Right? Don't focus on the outcome. Focus on the process. Focus on what's in your control. Right? Yeah. You're a college runner. You're going to be faster than me. Well, Are you going to be able to work as hard as me? Will you get up at night, train in the morning? What can I do that will put me in a better position to minimize my weaknesses? And that's really what Ironman taught me.
That's great stuff. That is awesome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Well, Andrew, I really want to thank you for being on the show today. I really enjoyed our conversation. Best of luck with everything. And I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you very much. That was awesome.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Enterprise Builders podcast. See you again next time, and make sure to click subscribe to get updates on future episodes.